All right, thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Gnostic Studies, and we're going to do another class on Tarot and Kabbalah in the Gnostic tradition. We want to thank you for joining us, and we want to do a review, as usual, of the previous Arcanum, before we jump into today's material. So the handout that you see on the screen, which is a PDF that's downloadable, is available on the website. The link is there in the chat, previous class. This is a very interesting Arcanum, Shin, number 21. There's been some confusion about it, we could say, some intentional, in order to deviate us from the path. Let's see the English names: the Fool, the Lunatic, sometimes the Madman, Transmutation, and then the Atheist. You know what? I need to add something to this file so that we can look at it together. Give me just a sec to pull that up. I believe I can do it like this. Boom. Let's see if we can do the other one. There we go. Okay. So as we mentioned, there's three mother letters. The Hebrew letter Shin is the letter of the fire. The three mother letters relate with different elements. Air is Aleph, the first letter of the alphabet. Mem, the 13th, is water. And Shin is fire. And for those of you that have been studying Kabbalah, do you know which or what corresponds to the earth element? Drop it in the chat if you do, and we'll let you know in just a moment. So the meaning is transmutation. The Lunatic, foolishness, total demoralization due to evil. Antitheses, the enemies of Hiram Abiff. No audio, huh? Oh, we got somebody saying no audio now. It looks like we're sending it. It looks like it's going through on our end. Maybe unplug and plug back in your thing. Is there anybody else getting audio? Well, if you're also not getting audio, please let us know in the chat so that we can try and troubleshoot if it is a universal problem. So antitheses, the enemies of Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff, as we mentioned, is Chiram Osiris, aka the Christ in the Masonic legend, the symbol of the hero, the person who we want to emulate, symbolic of the Christ within ourselves. And generally in the story, he is symbolically clear. All right, thank you guys for posting that you can hear. Appreciate that. So, the antitheses, the enemies of Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff was killed by three traitors, so to speak. Sometimes they're called ruffians. And we're going to discuss that in the upcoming class, Hermetic Masonry. We're going to read the story of the legend of Hiram Abiff. So 3, as you remember, we discussed 21 is reduced to 3 because 2 plus 1 equals 3. Those are the three enemies of Hiram Abiff. And we'll talk about that a little bit more today. This Arcanum is symbolized by the inverted pentagonal star, which represents black magic, inverted pentagram. Arcanum 21 is failure, foolishness, the lunatic of the tarot. One who works in self-realization is exposed to committing insanity. One must work with the three factors for the revolution of the consciousness. Transmutation, indicating that one must transmute the sexual impulse, the fire of nature. We have to learn how to control the fire of nature. Transcendental axiom, my soul does not enter in their secret, nor does my ship enter in their harbor. The explanation of the card was given during the class, so we refer you to that. Related explanation from the Frenchman Alphonse Lévy. It has some very interesting things to say here. Obviously, it's his opinion, and we'll read some. We'll read Samael and Veor today. He has his opinion as well, right? We should understand it as such. Maybe we agree, maybe we disagree, but let's hear what they have to say, and let's see if we can understand it. Shin is the letter of the polarized fire. That is to say, the letter of universal magnetism. It is the sacred fire of the Magi, the mediating fire which is Od Ob Awur. It is the horns of Moses and the fork of Satan. The hieroglyph for Shin is the lunatic or fool, a man dressed as a lunatic, walking aimlessly, burdened with a satchel that he carries behind him, and which is no doubt full of his follies and vices. His disordered clothes allow the discovery of what should be concealed, his secrets or privates, right? Let's look here. It's talking about this one. And we're going to look at a bigger version of the card here in just a moment. His disordered clothes allow him his exposure of secrets, or what we call privates nowadays. His disordered clothes allow the discovery of what should be concealed, and a dog or a cat who follows him also bites him, without him wondering how to escape or defend himself. We learned about the symbol of the dog in the previous Arcanum, that it's related with the sexual impulse. They use dogs. Dogs have been trained for, we could say, many years to help people who lack sight, who lack vision, are blind, right? And esoterically speaking, if our consciousness is asleep, then we are blind. But we can use our guide dog to take us out from that situation, to lead us. But we have to learn how to work with that dog, with that impulse, the fire of nature. Again, this next part is what Alphonse Lévy says, right? He's a Christian, and so he studied Kabbalah, but he disagrees with the Hebraic interpretation. He says the Jews hide away the Zohar as much as they can because it leads to Christianity through the understanding of Shin. But the true initiate promises the reconciliation of Judaism with Christianity, of Jehovah with Jesus or Yeshua. If you notice here, so the word Jehovah is Yod-He, Vav-He, these four letters, the Tetragrammaton. And then Yeshua, one of the ways to spell it is Yod-He, Shin, Vav-He. So in the middle, in the center, you add the letter Shin, and Jehovah becomes Yeshua, because the sound of the Shin is a sh or s sound. So, the true initiate promises the reconciliation of Judaism with Christianity, of Jehovah with Jesus or Yeshua, through the consecration of Shin, consecration of the fire. Shin is the goat of Mendes, the emissary goat. An emissary is someone who brings a message, right? Who is saved on condition of being eternally sacrificed. It is symbolized in the Mosaic cult by the great golden candlestick or menorah, which is the image of the eternal triple fire, 3 superimposed shins. So you can see he's got 1, 2, 3 there, and then when you lay them on top of each other, this is from his letters to a student. So probably is his drawing. These symbolize divinity, humanity, and the physical reality of the Redeemer who was promised to be the light of the world. The rehabilitation of Shin is the history of the redemption and explains to us the lunacy or foolishness of the cross of Christianity. So then in the New Testament of the Bible, it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18, "For the preaching of the cross is foolishness to them that perish. But unto us who are saved, it is the power of God." So again, we already know foolishness is related with lunacy, right? Because we misuse the fire. We misuse Shin. But the redemption of Shin is what allows us to change that situation. It is for this reason that redemption is attached to a name which causes the knee to bow of all that is in heaven, upon earth, or in the hells, and which changes the curse of Shin into the benediction of Jehovah, since Shin becomes the center of the virtues of the Tetragrammaton, being placed in its center. The dead wood of the tree of Edenic knowledge has become the living tree of the cross. Hell has lost its weapons, and death has lost its sting. Therefore we triumph through Shin, which is the fire of the Lord and the equilibrating law of justice. So then there's a comment there to explain it a little further. Now we can understand why the value of 0 is sometimes given to the tarot card. Sometimes it's 21, sometimes it's given as 0. When we squander the fire and let it control us, then we become useless. Since we become victims of nature and of the 3 traitors, we become a 0. We're not doing any more mathematics. At least in terms of the superior world, we don't have value because we're throwing it away. We're a victim of it. Or we could say we become crazy, absurd, a lunatic, right? In terms of our spiritual progress. Thus, we are the fool or the lunatic of the tarot. But when we dominate the fire, when we transmute, which is why this arcanum is also called transmutation, then we have value. And this is how we can develop spiritually. He mentions, Samael and Veor mentions the mantram Trin in the lecture, as well as the Olin rune, which there's a link to the practice. We're going to go over it again today because it's mentioned in Arcanum 22. But this is a practice to help us transmute our energy. In addition to pranayama, lamaseria exercise, hamsa, we can also do the Os and Othil runes, sometimes combined together, called Olin rune, which can also be combined with the Thorn or Dorn rune. In any case, as usual on the handout, we have the different cards, some of them with interesting themes. Let's look at this card specifically. See if we can open it up and it'll expand it in the window for you. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So this is the second handout. Here we have, this is sort of the progression of different tarot cards. And we want to look at that in order to give us some understanding of Sheen. So in the first card, we have Le Fou, the crazy, without any value. Sometimes it doesn't have a value. Sometimes it's given 0 as its value. From Oswald Wirth, who studied the descriptions of the tarot based on Alphonse Lévy. And then in the second one, which has the value of 0, you can see that the Fool is colored in black. Even his beard, right? And if we study alchemy, we learn that we all start as black and we have to convert ourselves into white. We're not talking about the external appearance. We're talking about symbolically what's going on. That is, we all start in a primitive state, like the primitive chaos. That is, we just begin before something has been added, like maybe like space, if you want to think of it that way. So it's symbolic there, but it also highlights some of the attributes, makes it a little bit easier to see. Then we have, that was in 1894, 1896, we have here another drawing. Again, there's we mentioned this in the last class, there's a crocodile or alligator or something right here. There's an obelisk that's overturned, fallen down, and there's a wilting flower. These are all symbolic of something, right? Here, in this card, another card from another Frenchman, Falconier, I think is his name, Robert. He had these sort of interesting tarot plates. He only made 22 of them, only the trumps, major arcana. He had it associated at 21, but at T, with the value of T, which is Tav, and this is an old character for Tav. So again, he confused 21 and 22. He has the atheist as the name of the card. There's a sun and a moon there, or a black moon and white moon, whatever you want to say. He's got a staff, something's over his shoulder, but there's the alligator, there's the obelisk that's overturned. A modified, or we could say corrected card here has the Sheen, the old letter for Sheen, S value, atheist. All right. Now, there is a similarity between this card and this card, which is the one we use in Gnosis. Wanted to point that out. But before we go there, let's look at, in 1920, actually 1936, Arnaldo Krumheller had a Aryo-Egyptian Kabbalah, and Hans Schubert had drawn some tarot cards for another German guy, and I can't think of his name right now, but he's a very interesting German occultist that certainly influenced Arnaldo Krumheller. But anyway, had these cards. This rune is the Othil rune that he's got here. So he's associating it with this card. It does give it the value 0. Again, Tav confuses 21 and 22. Nar is the name in German, means fool. associated with the planet Neptune. Right? Neptune is the god of the waters. Corrected card just swaps this out and gives it the value of 21. And then we have the tarot then end up being used by the Gnostic associations and given in Samael and Veor's books. You can see that originally these things were changed, the number and the name of the card to correspond to 21. And so let's see. Samael and Veor says Arcanum 21 has been confused with Arcanum 22, which is the crown of life. Down here at the bottom, Arnaldo Krumheller says, there has been great confusion for the Kabbalists since card 21 of the Hebrews represents the lunatic and is only numbered in the Aryan deck with a 0. It is not called the lunatic in the Nordic Aryan tradition, but the chaste innocent from Richard Wagner's opera, Parsifal. Remember, he's using term Aryan. He was in Germany in 1936, so you got to remember historically what's going on. He's trying to say, oh, this is the way. This is the thing. This is what's good. Obviously, you know, we can talk all about that, but there was a misunderstanding related with that. But he says the chaste innocent. What does chaste mean? Right? Not being lustful. Not losing the energy. From Wagner's opera Parsifal. Card 21 is now the Hebrew 22. And in this is the confusion. The Hebrew 22 is a naked woman inside a snake which bites its tail. We don't have a picture of that one, but the Hebrew Kabbalah has designated it with the name of the world. So that's another name for Arcanum 22. Lastly, in our handouts, so that's just a handout so you can look at different tarot cards and what, you know, or the associations are. Lastly, we want to look at different associations of tarot cards of people in the past, starting with Alphonse Levy, how he associates the card, and there's other authors there that may be of interest to you so that you can understand how people confuse things or mix things up. So we'll stop with our review of the previous class there. And we'll jump into today's class. Now, if you have any questions or comments, we want to recommend again to drop those in the comments area and we'll do our best to respond to them. All right, Arcanum 22, the final one. Let's look at the other symbols, which mean the same thing as Tav or Arcanum 22. The simplified hieroglyphic, we could say. Look, here we have an X. And here we have a cross. Arcanum 22, it is the crown of life, the return to the light, the reincarnation of the truth in us. The Kabbalistic synthesis of Arcanum 22 is 2 + 2 = 4. Man, woman, fire, water. The Yod, He, Vav, He. Man, woman, phallus, uterus. Here we have the holy and mysterious Tetragrammaton, the Holy Four. Hebraic letter Tav. Hour, because remember we had the different hours of Apollonius. What we've gotten to after 21, we had the 12th hour. So now there exists a 13th hour, which is that of liberation. Right? Remember, Arcanum 13 which we studied, related with the Hebrew letter Mem, is about death and immortality. That is, mystical death, psychological death, to eliminate the ego. We liberate ourselves through eliminating the ego, through creating our solar bodies and sacrificing for humanity, which are called the three factors. The transcendental axiom of Arcanum 22: the sun rises and the sun sets, and it returns once again to the place where it was born, where it is born. All right, our first reading from Manual of Practical Magic. Chapter is called Return. This book of white magic is not liked by any black magician. Every person that reads this book and repudiates it is because he or she is a black magician. Every student of occultism who repudiates it is because they are a black magician. Every association of fornicators is black magic. Jehovah prohibits fornication, and every person who disobeys the commandments of the Lord Jehovah is a black magician. Our single disciples of both sexes can transmute their sexual energy with the Olin rune. Practice. In a firm-footed position, the disciple will do several inhalations and exhalations rhythmically. As they inhale air, they should unite their imagination and willpower in vibrant harmony in order to make the sexual energy rise through the two ganglionic cords of the medulla until it reaches the brain, between the eyebrows, the throat, and the heart, respectively. We talked about this as well in the previous class. Then the disciple will exhale their breath, firmly imagining that the sexual energy is fixed in the heart. When exhaling their breath, the disciple will vocalize the mantra thorn in this manner. Thorn. If you can't roll your R's, then you do it the way you can, which is right? You do what you can. In this way, our disciples who are single of both sexes can transmute their sexual energy. Sexual energies are also transmuted with the aesthetic sense, with love of music, sculpture, with great walks, etc. The single person who does not want to have sexual problems should be absolutely pure in thought, in word, and in work. With the exercise of the Olin rune, we should carry out several movements of the arms. The disciple should first place the right hand on the waist. They will extend both hands towards the left hand slightly more elevated than the right. The arms stretch to form an acute angle with the trunk. They will then place both hands on the waist. So you stand in this position first. Then you bring with your heels together, put your left arm out and your right arm out, but the left arm is going to be higher than the right. I'm sorry, the left arm is going to be higher than the right. Then you inhale in that position. You can also do inhalations and exhalations in the first position, which is just the right arm on the right hip. So you have your arms to the left in this position right here. Inhale. Imagine the energy going up the spine, into the brain, between the eyebrows, the throat, and the heart, respectively. Then you step out, put your hands on your hips, into this second position. And then you do the mantram. Thor. We talked about it in a previous class. If you have any questions, you can always email us about it. We also refer you to the runes section of the website that discusses that. So continuing to quote from Manual of Practical Magic, he says, I, Samael Aun Weor, the authentic and legitimate avatar of the new era of Aquarius, declare that all the sciences of the universe are reduced to Kabbalah and alchemy. Whosoever wants to be a magician has to be an alchemist and a Kabbalist. Whosoever wants to have the universal medicine has to be an alchemist and a Kabbalist. There are black magicians, such as the terrible and monstrous Percival Krumheller, that's Arnaldo Krumheller's son, and like the so-called Chirenzi, who teach their disciples a negative sexual magic during which they spill their seminal liquor. My guess is many of you have heard of this before. These phallic cults were practiced by the evil Canaanite or Canaan black magicians and by the sorcerers from Carthago, Lyre, and Sido. The negative sexual magic of Parsifal and Chirenzi forms part of the tantric cults of the Canaanians. That negative sexual magic of Parsifal and Chirenzi was practiced by the Lemurian Atlantean black magicians in order to ingratiate themselves with demons. Those cities were reduced to dust, and all those evil ones entered the abyss. When the human being spills their hermetic cup, then they gather from the submerged worlds millions of demonic atoms, which infect our Brahmanic cord and sink us within our own atomic infernos. With positive sexual magic, the 3 breaths of pure Akash remain reinforced. However, if the human being spills their seminal liquor through the spasm, then those 3 breaths will make the Kundalini descend downwards towards the atomic infernos of the human being. That is the tale of Satan. No disciple should spill even a drop of their seminal liquor. And we're talking about men and women here, right? The spasm in man or woman. Here I deliver to humanity the key to all the empires of heaven and earth. Here I deliver to humanity the key to all the powers and the key to all the empires of heaven and earth, because I do not want to see this sad anthill of humanity suffering so much anymore. I, after studying all the spiritualist libraries of the world, have arrived at the logical conclusion that everything is reduced to numbers and to alchemy. One does not gain anything by stuffing one's head with so many theories. After these millions of volumes that have been, all these millions of volumes that have been written on Theosophy, Spiritism, Rosicrucianism, Magnetism, Hypnotism, Suggestion, etc., have only served to make people into lunatics. All the spiritualist schools are filled with eccentric people. In the spiritualist schools, we see the greatest variety in the types of lunacy. Theories fill people with lunacy. Among the spiritualist ranks, many let their hair and beard grow, and they think that that will make them, or that with that they will become gods. In the spiritualist currents, there abound the most varied types of mental imbalance. Really, the only thing that is useful in life is to have a good spouse and to practice sexual magic every day. We should live life intensely, with rectitude and with love. We should earn our daily bread with the sweat of our brow and be good citizens. With the practical teachings that I have delivered to my disciples in this Manual of Practical Magic, each of you can convert yourselves into a true, ineffable God. I, Samael Aun Weor, am a logos from preceding Mahamvantaras, and therefore I have sufficient authority to speak about these things. Living life with rectitude and with love, our disciples go on receiving their initiations in the internal worlds. All the books that have been written on spiritualism are filled with contradictions. All of them say the same thing. All of them contradict themselves. Some authors contradict others, and an author contradicts him or herself every 5 minutes. In the end, the poor reader ends their life as an eccentric, full of mental imbalances. I, Samael and Veor, swear in the name of the most beloved Father, in the name of the most adored Son, in the name of the most wise Holy Spirit, that whosoever practices the teachings of this manual of practical magic will transform themselves into a terribly divine God of the universe. May peace be with the entire humanity. Whew. All right. Questions or comments? Feel free. That was reading from the final chapter of Manual of Practical Magic from 1952. All right, I know there's a little lag, but don't seem to be any questions or comments, so we're going to jump into the next one. From, I believe it is 1967, Esoteric Course of Kabbalah. Sometimes it's printed in English as Alchemy and Kabbalah in the Tarot, I think. Let us now study Arcanum 22 of the Kabbalah. This Arcanum is the crown of life. Revelations chapter 2 verse 10 states, "Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee the crown of life." To find faithful people in these studies is difficult. All those who enter into Gnosis want to develop occult powers immediately, and this is serious. People believe that the path of realization is like playing football or playing tennis. People have still not learned how to be serious. Commonly, people enter into these studies with the longing to acquire powers within a few months, and when they realize that they need patience and hard work, then they desperately leave in search of another school. This is how they waste their life away, fleeing from school to school, from lodge to lodge, from institution to institution, until they get old and die without ever having achieved absolutely anything. This is humanity. One can count those who are truly serious and prepared for practical adepthood on the fingers of the hands. Beloved disciples, you need to develop each one of the 22 major arcana of the tarot within yourselves. You are immutatus, or rather one whom others have put upon the path of the razor's edge. Exert yourself to become adeptus, one who is the product of their own deeds, one who conquers the science by themselves, the child of their own work. Gnosis teaches 3 steps that anyone who works in the flaming forge of Vulcan has to pass through. These are purification, illumination, and perfection. It so happens that curious people who enter into our Gnostic studies want illumination, astral projection, faculties of clairvoyance, practical magic, etc., and when they do not achieve this immediately, they withdraw. No one can achieve illumination without having previously purified themselves. There are also many curious students. They enter into our studies purely out of curiosity, who want to immediately be wise. Paul of Tarsus stated, "We speak wisdom among those that are perfect," from 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 6. Only those who achieve the third step are perfect, and only among them can divine wisdom be spoken of. In the old Egypt of the pharaohs, they knew these steps of the path. Within occult masonry, they are called apprentices, companions, and masters. Candidates remain in the degree of apprentice for 7 years and sometimes longer. Only when the Hierophants were completely sure of the purification and sanctity of the candidates were they then able to pass them on to the second stage. The first faculty that the candidate develops is the one related with the degree of listener or auditor, the faculty of clairaudience and occult hearing. Really, illumination begins only after 7 years of apprenticeship. Nonetheless, students believe that spiritual faculties are going to be immediately developed, and when they realize that this subject matter is serious, then they flee. This is the sad reality. It is very rare to find someone who is prepared for adepthood. The crown of life. The intimus, our inner being, Atman, is not the crown of life. It has 3 profundities, and these are beyond the intimus. The crown of life is our resplendent dragon of wisdom, our internal Christ. The 3 profundities. The first profundity is the origin of life. The second is the origin of the word. And the third is the origin of the sexual force. These 3 profundities of the resplendent dragon of wisdom are beyond the intimus or inner being. The latter must be sought within the unknowable profundities of oneself. The number 22. The 3 profundities of the resplendent dragon of wisdom emanated from a mathematical point. This is the Ein Sof, the interior atomic star that has always smiled upon us. The Holy Trinity emanated from this interior star. The 3 profundities will return and fuse with this interior star. The number 22, Kabbalistically added as follows: 2 plus 2 equals 4. The number 22 is Kabbalistically added as follows: 2 plus 2 equals 4. The Holy 3 emanates from the interior star. The 3 plus its interior star is the Holy 4. The mysterious tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He. Now we comprehend why the 22nd Arcanum is the crown of life. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee the crown of life. Blessed by the one who incarnates the spirit of wisdom. Oh, it's probably blessed be. Blessed be the one who incarnates the spirit of wisdom. Probably a typo. The Buddhas who do not renounce nirvana can never incarnate the cosmic Christ. The cosmic Christ is beyond the inner Buddha. Our inner Buddha has to seek the cosmic Christ within its own unknowable profundities. He, the cosmic Christ, is the Glorian, the incessant eternal breath profoundly unknowable to itself, the ray that joins us to the abstract absolute space, which is the Ein Sof and Ein Sof Aur, the 3 aspects of what we call the absolute. hieroglyph. So before, when Krumheller was talking about the snake, the woman inside the snake, sometimes what's a wreath here in this drawing is a snake. So it's still the same symbolism, but in this hieroglyphic we see of the Arcanum 22 is the crown of life between the four mysterious animals of sexual alchemy. In the middle of the crown, truth is seen, represented as a naked woman who has a wand in each hand. In this case, she's got two in one hand. We can incarnate the truth only by working in the flaming forge of Vulcan, sexual alchemy. So those four animals we talked about in Arcanum 4. They're also related with the Sphinx of Egypt. The Ark of Alliance, I think in English sometimes it's called the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark had 4 cherubim who touched each other with their wings and were in the attitude of the man and the woman during the sexual act. Found inside the Ark were the blossoming or blooming rod of Aaron, the cup of Gomor containing the manna, and the 2 tablets of the law. And the manna contained in the cup of Gomor was the number 4, resulting from the inward addition of 2 plus 2. The interior lodge. The first duty of any Gnostic is to be sure that the lodge is protected. During the degree of apprentice, the attention is focused especially on the astral plane. The interior lodge must be protected. The astral body must be cleaned of animal passions and of all types of desires. In the second degree, the mental lodge must be protected. Worldly thoughts must be cast out of the temple. It is necessary to protect the interior lodge very well, so that doctrines, persons, demons, and things do not penetrate inside the internal sanctuary in order to sabotage the great work. In practical life, we may see that students, apparently very serious, when they become careless, when they could not protect their own interior lodge, were invaded by people and strange doctrines. Oftentimes they continue working in the flaming forge of Vulcan, but they mixed many different methods and systems. The results of all this was a true Tower of Babel, a barbaric confusion whose only purpose was to bring disorder into the interior lodge of the consciousness. Therefore, it is necessary to have the interior lodge, the authentic school of intimate self-education, in perfect order. We are absolutely sure that only one door and only one way exists: sex. Everything else that is not through this way is just a miserable waste of time. We are not against any religion, school, sect, order, etc. Nonetheless, we firmly know that inside our individual interior lodge, we must have order, so that we avoid confusion and error. We have accomplished this endeavor, and we feel satisfaction, since we have served humanity and ourselves. To present a work of such magnitude encourages us and prepares us for new endeavors. Humanity has never liked the doctrine of the Gnostics. Hence, the substantial content of this work is for a more advanced humanity, because the people of this barbaric epoch are not capable of understanding these things. We hope that you, friend, as a good reader, know how to find in this treasure that now is in your hands the happiness, the joy, and the peace that we all want for all beings. However, if you despise it by not finding in it something that entices you within, do not be selfish. Think about the one next to you who might need it. May your Father who is in secret, and may your Divine Mother Kundalini bless you. Samael on Veor. So made it to the second, through the second reading. Again, it's time for, if you have any questions, we'll do a brief pause for questions or comments. All right, we'll keep going. This is from 1978, a book called Initiatic Path and the Arcana of Tarot and Kabbalah. There are, it's a combination of lecture material as well as material from the other books, the previous two books that we read, and other materials, all combined together to like a compilation to try and have one book that has all the information. So, description of the card of Arcanum 22, which is called Return. In the waters of life is the swastika cross, symbolizing the Muladhara chakra of 4 petals. So, in the West, many of us have learned that the swastika belongs to only one group, which is the Nazis during World War II and those who sort of copy them nowadays. But if we analyze that cross, we find it in Native American tradition, we find it in Buddhism, Hinduism, and I used to work on a college campus, and there was a man there from Ethiopia, and he went to those churches that are carved into the ground in Ethiopia. They're in the shape of a plus or a equal cross. And he said when he was there, it really shocked him because there were swastikas there also carved into it. And he learned the same thing that we learn in the West, that the symbol belongs to the Nazis. And of course it's not. It's a very ancient symbol that they used and tried to leverage to their advantage, but didn't use it properly. And so we can study that also when we study runology, but for the moment we'll just say that it symbolizes the cross in movement. The swastika is the cross in movement, a cross that spins. It's not doesn't have anything to do with totalitarianism, racism. It has to do with the movement of the cross. And as he's saying here that it's related with the Muladhara chakra, that chakra is the one at the base of our spinal column, right? It's the root chakra. So this symbol is what he's talking about. The Muladhara chakra of 4 petals. So this symbol symbolizes the Muladhara chakra. A woman who represents truth is playing a harp, plucking the sexual lyre of 9 strings in order to find the keynote. In the superior part of the card, the 4 gods of death, Mestha, Hapi, Dua, Mutef, and Keb-Senuf, representing the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air, the mysterious animals of sexual alchemy. Above the 4 gods of death, we find the sacred serpent, which illuminates the sphere of Ra, which is granted to the Osirian adept, child of the light. Oh, somebody's asking for the source of what we're reading. You know what? I forgot to add that for sure. Here we go. Today's class. Let me drop that into the comments area in case you want to read along. Apologies for not doing that sooner. And so that has all the cited material there. Now we're going to look at the esoteric significance of Arcanum 22. Arcanum 22 is the crown of life, the return to the light, the incarnation of the truth in us. Beloved disciples, you need to develop each one of the 22 major arcana of the tarot within yourselves. You are imitatus, or rather one whom others have placed upon the path of the razor's edge. Strive to achieve the state of adeptus, one who is a product of their own works, one who conquers the science for themselves, the child of their own work. You must achieve the degree of adeptus, leaving behind the animal state, acquiring consciousness. Gnosis teaches the 3 stages through which everyone working in the fiery forge of Vulcan must pass. These are purification, illumination, perfection. The curious who enter into our Gnostic studies want immediate illumination, astral unfolding, clairvoyance, practical magic, etc. And when they do not attain this, they leave immediately. No one can achieve illumination without first having purified themselves. Only those who have attained purification, sanctity, may enter the chamber of illumination. There also exist many students who enter our studies for reasons of pure curiosity and want to be sages immediately. Paul of Tarsus says, "Amongst the perfected we speak wisdom. Only they who reach the 3rd stage are perfected. Only amongst them may divine wisdom be spoken of." In the old Egypt of the pharaohs, within occult masonry, these 3 stages of the path are called apprentices, companions, masters. The candidates remained in the degree of apprentice for 7 years, or even longer. It is only when the hierophants are completely sure of the purification and sanctity of the candidate that they can pass on to the 2nd stage. Really, only after 7 years of apprenticeship does illumination begin. The crown of life is our resplendent dragon of wisdom, the internal Christ. From the Ein Sof, the interior atomic star which has always smiled upon us and emanates the Holy Trinity. The monad, which is the name of our inner being, plus the Trinity, sometimes the monad is called the intimus, equals the tetragrammaton. Arcanum 22, Kabbalistically added together, gives us 4, the tetragrammaton. The result is the Holy Four, the mysterious tetragrammaton, the Yod-He-Vav-He, man, woman, fire, and water, man, woman, phallus, uterus. You will now comprehend why Arcanum 22 is the crown of life. Revelation says, "Fear not those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prisons, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee the crown of life." Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. The prison is the prison of pain, and the 10 days are the tribulations, whilst you are submitted to the wheel of returns and karma, right? Arcanum 10, the wheel of fortune. Whosoever receives the crown of life is liberated from the wheel of returns, recurrence, and karma. The crown of life is triune, having 3 aspects: the Ancient of Days, the Adorable Son, and the Very Wise Holy Spirit. The crown of life is the Sun Man, S-U-N, the Sun King, so celebrated by the Emperor Julian. The crown of life is our incessant eternal breath, profoundly unknown to itself. The particular ray of each human being, the Christ. The crown of life is Keter, Hokmah, and Binah, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Whosoever is faithful unto death receives the crown of life. In the banquets of the Lamb, the faces of all those saints who have it incarnated shine like suns of love, S-U-N. The immaculate white mantle is stained with the royal blood of the immolated Lamb. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt by the second death. That's Revelations chapter 2, verse 11. Whosoever does not overcome will be divorced from the beloved and will sink into the abyss. They who enter the abyss will pass through the second death. The demons of the abyss disintegrate slowly during many eternities. These souls are lost. Whosoever overcometh will not be hurt by the second death. When we receive the crown of life, the Verb is made flesh in each one of us. Every saint who attains the Gnostic initiation receives the crown of life. Our most beloved Savior, Jesus Christ, attained the Gnostic initiation in the Jordan. And the Verb was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. That's from John chapter 1, verse 14. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. From John chapter 3, verse 19. He is the Savior because he has brought us the crown of life and has given his blood for us. We need to reach the supreme annihilation of the I, of the ego, in order to receive the crown of life. We need to revive the Lamb within ourselves. We need the resurrection of Easter. Right? So if we study the symbols of Christianity, we're approaching what's called Christmas, right? We need to have the birth of the Christ within ourselves, right? The Christmas in our heart. But at some point, if we want to continue on that path, we also need to have the Easter, the resurrection within ourselves. So now this is the final chapter, Initiatic Significance of Arcanum 22, from chapter 44 of Initiatic Path in the Arcana of Tarot and Kabbalah. This Arcanum is the crown of life, the return to the light, and the incarnation of the truth within ourselves. Revelation says, "Be faithful unto death, and I will give thee the crown of life." Without a doubt, this deserves to be studied profoundly. Let us remember the crown of the saints. In the pineal gland there exists the church of Laodicea. In the time of the Hyperboreans there was a virgin with that name who bore the offering to Delos, or Delphi, of ancient Greece. This arcanum represents a crown with many radiations. This is the Sarasrara chakra, situated in the pineal gland. When the sacred fire of Kundalini reaches the pineal gland, it puts that 1,000-petaled lotus in movement. And looking at the matter more profoundly, we must know that Mother Kundalini marries the Holy Spirit in the pineal gland. The Holy Spirit is the third logos, or the Vulcan of Greek mythology. In Tibet, it is the Mahakoan. The Kundalini develops, evolves, and progresses within the aura of the Mahakoan. So it is then in the pineal gland that the sacred tattva of Shiva Shakti vibrates intensely. That is to say, the Divine Mother Kundalini and the third Logos. Tattva is a vibration of ether. Absolute sanctity cannot be attained until completely finishing with the three traitors who assassinated Hiram Abiff, who is the master builder of the Temple of Solomon. So then he lists off the three traitors: Sebal, Ortalut, and Stokin. Sebal is the demon of desire. We studied this in the previous class, named Apopi in the Egyptian mysteries, named Judas in the Christian mysteries. Ortalut is the demon of the mind, named Hai or Pilate. Stokin is the demon of ill will. Sometimes it's called evil will, named Nebt, as well as Caiaphas. The object of our studies is to stop being demons, right? That's what he's saying, to eliminate the demons from ourselves. Number 1, Judas is the demon of desire. He is a terribly perverse demon, which is what the whole world has within themselves, and all of us are demons. To stop being so corresponds to the Initiatic mysteries. So you see, he's explaining why we would want to enter into the mysteries. And he says, we have to begin by recognizing that we are demons. Number 2, Pilate is the demon of the mind. He is the one who always washes his hands and continues washing them, because the mind can justify what it's doing and why it did it. Number 3, Caiaphas is the demon of ill will. He who does not do the will of the Father is disobedient. The will of the Father must be done here and in the internal worlds. Those who are sleeping must do the will of the Father. The will of the Father is done if there is right thought, right feeling, and right action, which we could say is a synthesis of the Eightfold Path of Buddhism, but related to the three brains, which we study in Gnostic psychology: intellectual brain related with thought, emotional brain related with feeling, and the action brain related with the motor instinctive sexual centers. If we do something crooked or wrong, it is not the will of the Father. In conclusion, one must totally eliminate the ego so that there does not remain a single subjective element within. And so, if you understand what he's saying the ego is subjective. And that's why we want to eliminate it. We don't want to have subjective knowledge, subjective perspective. We want objectivity. We want the truth within us. Remember, Arcanum 22 is the incarnation of the truth within ourselves. So he says one must totally eliminate the ego so that there does not remain a single subjective element within, and be of pure spirit as Gautama the Buddha, who for this reason was called the Great Illuminate. And to attain this, one must pay, and the price of this is life itself. Right? And if we go back to Arcanum 1, remember that he said initiation is life itself. The vanities of the world must be forgotten, and one must dedicate oneself to the great work. To work and work and work until attaining it. This is not a question of evolution or involution, which are two cosmic laws of nature. One must fabricate the solar bodies and dissolve the ego. I speak to you from experience, not from theory. Remember how he said at the beginning that theories can make us crazy? He says, I know the Egyptian mysteries, the Tibetan mysteries, the mysteries of Lemuria, because I was on the continent of Mu, the Hyperborean mysteries. If one explains the path, it is so that it may be followed. Only with aptitude may one teach. Synthesis of Arcanum 22. I, Samael Veor, the authentic and legitimate avatar of the new age of Aquarius, declare that all the sciences of the universe reduce to Kabbalah and to alchemy. Whosoever wants to be a magician must be an alchemist and a Kabbalist. There are black magicians who teach their disciples negative sexual magic, during which they ejaculate or spill the seminal liquor, right? He's talking about orgasm, the spasm. Those phallic cults were practiced by the evil black magicians of Canaan, by the sorcerers of Carthage, of Tyre, and of Sidon. The Lemurian, Atlantean black magicians practiced it in order to ingratiate themselves with demons. Those cities were reduced to dust, and all of those evil ones entered the abyss. When the human being spills the cup of Hermes, then he or she takes in millions of demonic atoms from the submerged worlds, which infect the Brahmanic cord, and this submerges us within our own atomic infernos. The 3 breaths of Akash are reinforced with sexual magic, right? Transmutation, white tantra. However, if the human being spills the seminal liquor, then those 3 breaths will cause the kundalini to descend, to be directed downwards towards the atomic infernos of the human being, which is called the tail of Satan. No disciple should ever spill a single drop of that cup. I give here to humanity the key of all the empires of heaven and of earth, because I do not wish to see this unhappy human swarm suffering so much. So that's the end of the material that we wanted to cover for Arcanum 22. Again, we want to open it up for questions and comments. If you have any, we want to also invite you to meditation on December 30th. It's a Friday. We're going to try and do a meditation that evening. Well, it's evening for us in the northern hemisphere of the Americas. But want to invite you to that. But prior to that, we have next week, we're going to try and do the final class. We're going to do our best to combine 2 classes, which are the last 2 classes of this series. Let's see if we can pull it up on the screen for you. So they are the Holy and Mysterious Tetragrammaton, where we talk about the 4-lettered name of God from different authors. And then when we talk about the minor arcana, so we'll talk about the cards that are given, we could say 23 through 78. We'll just briefly talk about that with the 3 main authors we like to study: Eliphas Levi, Viracocha, Arnaldo Krumheller, same person, and Samael Veor. So we'll look at what they have to say about the minor arcana. And yeah, and then that'll be it. And then we'll take a pause over until 2023, because there's just 1 week left at that point. And then we'll start the Hermetic Masonry series. So we want to invite you to join us for those classes next Thursday, same time, same place. And then the following Friday after that, the 30th, we'll be doing the meditation. So it doesn't look like there's any questions or comments at this time. But as always, you can email us or leave a comment here, and we'll do our best to respond. Yeah, thank you guys for listening and for being here. We appreciate your attention and glad that you're finding this information useful. All right. Well, on that note, we want to wish you the best in your esoteric work.